All right, let's move in to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, our narrative for the year for them is this coaching staff on the hot seat, okay? I will say this. Based on the moves the Jacksonville Jaguars have made this offseason in terms of some guys they have extended and everything like that, it seems like what Shad Khan has been saying that you cannot live and die by free agency, that you need to develop and extend your homegrown talent through the draft. It seems like that was something that they did a lot. They live and died by free agency, and it seems like they have, at least this year, started to take steps in the other direction. But where we come into the issue is, if we look at the Jaguars, right, last year, I think it was very hopeful that the Jacksonville Jaguars would be the 1 seed. That was my narrative going into last year, right? So I think when we look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, they were 9-8 2 years ago, and then they were 9-8 again. But it kind of felt like this team really should have been much better last year than it was. And I think something you can point to is the play calling. I think the offense was a little weird with Press Taylor calling the plays, and we saw Calvin Ridley not necessarily be everything that they wanted him to be. So they go out, they get Gabe Davis, they go out, and they draft Brian Thomas Jr., and now you have a much more, in my opinion, loaded offense. I think it is a little muddy in terms of who's going to be the number one starting receiver. But let's not forget, they also have Evan Ingram, who's one of the best tight ends in football. And when you look at their O-line, it's not horrible. And they went out and got Mitch Morse once the Bills released them to kind of solidify that center position. They extended Josh Allen. Yeah. They extended Josh Allen. Trayvon Walker is hopefully going to be that guy that everyone hopes that he can be this year. They extended Tyson Campbell. I think, have a pretty good core in place. But I don't want to equate this situation to the Falcons. But if they have another 9-8 year, it kind of feels like the Falcons' 3 consecutive finishes of 7-10.
No, it does. And, to touch on everything you were saying at first, I think the big thing about the Jags that does really start to put this coaching staff on the hot seat, like you're saying, is this team now is coming with a much more long-term plan, like you said. And what they said to everybody this year is, they said it not directly, but they did, if you're paying attention. They basically said, okay, look, we need to really shore up this interior D line so that Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker can just feast, right? So we're going to take shots on Mason Smith, and then we're also going to take a shot on Jordan Jefferson here. They also said, okay, we really need DB help, right? We really got to get our DB room in check. So we're going to take Jerry Jones, and we're going to take Deontay Prince. And then they said, well, as we know, obviously, we need a number one wide receiver. We need a receiver who's not going to be dropping passes. That's been our literally Achilles heel for the last 2 or 3 years. We're getting Brian Thomas Jr. with super high upside, right? We're going to get another offensive lineman, Javon Foster. We're going to shore up this line. We're going to give Trevor Lawrence the help he needs. And, and then again, we in free agency, right? They also made a fair amount of moves. You already meant Gabe Davis, Eric Armstead, which truthfully might have been a bit of an overpay, but I get it. They have connection.
You give really good players amazing money. And I think that move will actually be one of the moves where you overpay a guy and it actually does move the needle for your team.
No, and I want to say to that point, Hunter, I think what I was going to say next is, too, on top of that is the reason I think, like you're saying, the overpay in this case is okay. Like we were just saying, look, you're the Jaguars. You're saying we need to shore up this interior for the development of our edges, more so Trayvon. I mean, Josh Allen's already one of the best edges in the league. But now you add a veteran in to help these youngins, Mason Smith, Jordan Jefferson. All of a sudden, when Eric Armstead's out the door in a couple years, he's getting older, whatever, due to retirement, not being, not renewing that contract. All of a sudden, we got a real experienced, really good veteran in the building helping out our guys that we just literally focused the draft on. So the Jaguars have a plan. They have a vision. Also, how can I forget the Darnell Savage is their slot corner? The Jaguars have done a lot of things that really do make this team feel like a pretty new look Jaguars in a sense, right? I mean, realistically, this is a pretty new. If we could take a myriad of teams that are really like new look teams, right? Minus like Trevor Lawrence, like yeah, the Jags are a pretty new look roster. So that Mac Jones the backup, not that it's that important, but there's a lot of new pieces in place is what I'm trying to get at. And the bottom line is, if with all these new pieces and this new identity and this new long-term approach to getting the trenches set for Trevor Lawrence's dominance and a long-term vision, if the coaching staff can't start to put together the winning recipe now, well, tell me, Hunter, I mean, what are the direction Desad Khan have to go in decides to find a new staff? Because I like to always bring it up too. Look, we'll always respect him as NFL fans. Doug Peterson, he's hit the pinnacle. He is coached to the pinnacle, and nobody can ever take that away from him. But in life, and especially in the NFL, it's not about what you've done for me. It's what you're doing now. Let Bill Belichick be the greatest example ever. So, and we already seen him get fired by the most active GM in the league, who happens to always see things 2 or 3 years before that they happen, in Howie Roseman. So could we be seeing a repeat situation here in Jacksonville? As much as you and me are Dougie P. Truthers and, we joke around and we want that staff to be part of the Jags because we like Doug Peterson. Realistically, though, if it's another underwhelming bad season, really, what other direction do the Jags have to go? Because you're not getting rid of Trevor Lawrence. You're not cutting a bunch of guys you just signed. The money's pretty tied up for the most part in a few years down the road anyway. So the coaching staff is really the only place you can go from here if things don't take a jump this season.
I'm very interested to see what their offense looks like this year. Like, I would like to see a lot more vertical downfield play schemed up on offense, because Trevor Lawrence has had a history of being pretty successful with that. And I don't think they were doing it a ton last year. I really think in terms of, is the coaching staff on the hot seat? They just brought in Ryan Nielsen, right, to be their defensive coordinator. I think Doug Peterson needs to take back play calling, because this is a common theme I notice with, because they fired their defensive coordinator, right? Am I wrong?
Let me do. I'm almost positive they did. Hold
on. Let me see. Yes, a day after the loss to Tennessee Titans, they fired defensive coordinator Mike Caldwell and his staff. Okay. That was January 9th, 2024. So I will say this. Something that I have noticed as a common theme with coaches on the hot seat. When things don't go well, first, the coordinators go. Offensive, defense, whatever you're lacking, that goes. If you don't get the fix right, and if your team doesn't get the fix right at coordinator, and the team doesn't perform better than the previous year, if the seat ain't warm, it's scorching hot, right? Like, it's scorching hot. Like, I think Doug Peterson will get it figured out, because I think if things are not going well on offense, that Doug Peterson will take play calling from Press Taylor if they don't start the season like that. And then I think you have a lot more ownership of what goes on. I just think, like you were saying, the Jaguars are in a position where if it doesn't work, where do you pivot to? Right? And I'm not going to lie, like, I have been a Jaguars hype beast for the last couple of years. I really like what T-Law's done. The number 1 seed narrative might come back this year, even though it's not going to happen.
Real veterans remember the seed, one seed truthers.
Bro, I mean, they almost had it, and then they fell apart.
They had us in the first half, bro. They sold us.
It's just, I guess my thing is, I like the direction that the Jaguars are heading in terms of, it feels like they're making a little bit more educated decisions in how they build their roster, how they draft, how they sign players. With that being said, if they have another 9-8 season, I don't know what you're accomplishing. I don't know what else you could do to be better outside of all your draft picks hitting.
Well, and I just want to close out with this, because this is the truth here at this point, Hunter, and this is what I think Jags fans need to reckon with, or what's the word here? Not reckon with. I'm blanking. You guys get what I'm saying. What needs to be realized is that this roster. Let me, and I hate to do this, I really do, but I'm going to give you an example. Okay, let's just little universe swap. Let's take Andy Reid over. And let's also take Steve Spagnuolo over and bring them to the Jaguars. Do you think that we're not seeing at least a 3 or 4 win increase on that win total with this current roster?
I think so.
Like, I think so.
Well,
so that's where the pressure comes in. Is that this roster is not some like
I will say this
bad roster. Like all in all, when you look at the talent on this roster, you're saying to yourself, like, this is a 10, 11 win team, should be bare minimum. You got to get at least to that benchmark.
I think those wins are going to come from like the boost from the defense and the play calling. Like I think it's going to mainly be on the defense. And I think Andy Reid is a better play caller than Doug Peterson. I'm not trying to argue that. But I think if Peterson is calling the plays, I don't think the jump on offense is as drastic if you're bringing Andy Reid to replace Press Taylor.
No, I'll give you that though. If they give the keys back to Doug P, which should have never been taken away in the first place, I don't know what
they're doing.
I'm pretty sure Doug gave them away himself. I don't know what he's doing with that one. So yeah, they need to get that back together. But that's really the narrative this year, Hunter. Is Doug Peterson and his staff the guys, or are we going to see a whole new staff in Jacksonville next year?